Daniel Gorolevsky is the founder and CEO of TLVTech, a customer centric software development company that helps startups and enterprises bridge business goals with modern technology. With that, Daniel, I'm thrilled to have you at the live event today and very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for having me. I'm very excited. So, today we're going to talk about AI, of course. The title here is not hypothetical. I've seen this happening multiple times over the years where companies and enterprise organizations want change. They want to adopt innovation, they want to drive new revenues or optimizations for the organizations. And then what happens is that, especially now, they introduce AI and it works, but the company doesn't. And today we're going to talk a bit about how it looks like in real life, what I've witnessed failing in enterprises and larger companies over the years, and how we can overcome this and, of course, make AI work for you and for your organizations. So, as mentioned, I'm Daniel Gorlovetsky. I am a CEO and founder. I've been part of multiple startups and drove multiple startups over the years. And today I help enterprises ship AI that actually wins and runs. So pilots in organizations don't fail because the technology doesn't work. What I'm seeing is that speaking to different stakeholders in companies, they'll mention that this model is better than the other one, as this open source is really better than, has better performance than this LLM. It's not the case. All models are great, all tools are great. The problem is how you use it and how you introduce it to your organization. Because the technology can work, but as we all know, there is much more than technology when building a product and especially when building a company. And the problem with AI is, from what I'm seeing, is that, of course, AI is very powerful and it has multiple functions and a lot of benefits. But what AI introduced to us, probably for the first time, is a multidimensional problem. There is so much chaos around it, and we're going to talk about it, about all the different nuances and angles to AI. And we'll see that there is plain chaos, especially in large organizations. You see there's a lot of chaos. And of course, the more company grows, we want to have more managed processes, the more organized, orchestrated procedures. And AI is just a whole chaos inside the organization. The problem, again, as I mentioned, is multidimensional. There are four major killers to an AI project or an AI pilot. The first one is tech complexity. The larger an organization is, the more information systems they have, the more types of data scattered around. There is no accountability over the data. There is no singular place where the data is stored or managed. There is no clean pipeline. The second is legal and compliance. So AI introduces a lot of questions around the compliance of it. So we're going to bring in a different model, a different company, Anthropic, OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini. Doesn't really matter. We're going to introduce a new player to our ecosystem as an organization, and we're going to share all the most sensitive information with it. Data that we gathered as an organization for years, and it's basically our gold mine. And we're going to just give it away for the sake of productiveness. A lot of questions around that. Then there's internal politics. I'm introducing a new AI model, a new AI work stream, a new AI tool. Who's paying for it? Is it going to be the business unit, the tech unit? How are the priorities managed there? Who's in charge of it? Who builds it and then who owns it? A lot of questions around the internal politics inside large organizations. And finally, there's the accountability. Because when we build something, somebody needs to own it, somebody needs to grow it, to maintain it. And then the question is, who is in charge of it? Is it our SRE team, our site reliance or reliability engineers? Is it our R&D teams? Is it the business units? Is it the customer of it? So this multidimensional problem is a big wall when introducing an AI project, right? And we as organizations have to answer to all of these questions before moving forward, before actually starting to implement and introduce that AI project. And then what happens is that at base case, right, the pilot worked, but the organization wasn't ready for it to work. So I'll share a bit about one of the projects we actually had a few months ago. So we worked with a large publicly traded global organization, a fintech organization, very successful one, rapidly growing. Everything works perfect for them. And they had this challenge where they had to do KYC processes, right? So know your customer processes. It's when people or organizations look at your background and who you are and verify who you are before onboarding you to the platform. And they had over 20 years of KYC data. So certificates, IDs, social security photos, applications, they were all scattered in multiple places. And again, this is a global company. So they had a storage of those certificates in Europe, and then another storage in Australia, another one in, of course, North America, and so on and so on. And the problem was, how do they introduce AI to make sense out of all of this? 20 years of information of millions of customers. And of course, there was a buyer for this, right? But nobody really wanted to own it, right? Because basically a warehouse of data, right? A warehouse of information about clients. It's being used in compliance, it's being used in legal, it's being used in different products that they're building, it's being used in tech, it's being used in sales. Everybody uses this KYC data, but nobody really wants to own it. And so we had like a multi-tiered approach there. We tried to break down this project into different stages, right? And the first stage was to look at the technology, to look at the data lakes they had, to look at the data warehouses they had, and to really look at all of that, the expertise in the company, of course, and to try and recommend the best model for that problem, right? So the problem was image recognition. The problem was OCR, so extracting text. It was to match between different fields. There was a lot of technical challenges around that. So the first stage was to look at that from a professional technical standpoint and to say which models and work flows we recommend. The second was the legal exposure. So of course, once we have that, we have the model selection, we have how we want to architect the solution. The legal team comes in and says, hey, I can't let a model work on the millions records of my clients. This is confidential. We have regulation. We're a publicly traded company. We have different regulations and standards. We can't just do that. Right. So the second conversation we had, set of conversation, was how do we make sure the technical solution that we proposed is also explainable to a non-technical team, to a legal team. When we speak about privacy, when we speak about GDPR, we have to explain it in the legal terms to make sure the legal team understands. The third challenge was the security, because of course, we can't just leak information, right? So this was a separate conversation with the CISO team, with the CIO team, with the security teams to explain how the technology and the selection and the workflow really stands under the compliance that we are required to from a security standpoint. So if we are SOC 2 compliant, we have to show this and that to explain how we are still SOC 2 compliant the day after. And if we have to maintain a SOX certificate for a publicly traded company, we also need to show how it stands in those different ITGC controls, and so on and so on. Then there's compliance reporting, right? Compliance is not a one-off project, right? We need to show how the work stream is not only compliant today, it's going to maintain the compliance over the time, and how we can prove that to whoever is going to ask for it, an auditor or a regulator. We have to make sure we know in advance how to explain that introduction of a new solution to these entities. And finally, we had to work out the internal politics, right? To explain that we will need our mandate to work across these different teams. We will need to be in priority for those different teams. We need to make sure we have the right access to the right people, to the right stakeholders to drive this forward. So before even doing a single implementation, we had to figure out these 5 big vetoes and only then go to implementation. So what we've done is that we actually had our own kind of veto to work with the teams. The managers, the directors of those teams, they were all on board. There was a start date and a deadline for this project. Everybody were on board. Everybody pays the price, quote unquote, right? And everybody are measured on the success of this project. So if it's a project that deals with sales, marketing, and different business units, right, it's going to be accountable on the P&L level, right, on how they are measured in terms of revenues, in terms of expenses, right? And we as a team had the accountability on us and the responsibility to go and run between those different departments and get that okay from different units. So whenever we need to speak to the legal team, the director knows it's in priority. They would route us to one of the people in the team. We would talk to the legal department. It would take a few weeks. Then we would get an okay and move on to the next team. And eventually all that scheduling, follow-ups, evidence, meetings, it was all on our team, right? So we didn't need to speak to different project managers and secretaries, quote unquote, of different teams. We would just do it ourselves because we are also measured on the success of this project. So what it ends up with, it's technical depth, right? We are a tech team. Obviously, we speak technology. It's in our blood and veins. There was the organizational accountability because the success of the project was our success and vice versa. And it just created this perfect alignment between an external vendor, us, and the organization, and one team, which is external, us, and 5, 6, 7 different teams inside the organization. It created the perfect alignment between all stakeholders. And what we ended up with was, when we started, there were almost 200 people doing that KYC processing, right? Looking at those millions of records. And they would do it every year because compliance, again, is not a one-off event. So every year, 200 people will sit down on that information and would extract manually and review it and look over it and summarize and store and do this whole thing. When we ended up our project, there were just 15. So just imagine the saving on maintenance, headache, management, and actual money when introducing that AI process. So when you think about your next AI project, think about these 3 questions. First of all, who owns it? Who's the champion? Who's going to work hand in hand with that vendor to introduce that project? Who's going to drive this? Second, compliance is a big deal, especially with AI. We are sharing our most sensitive piece of data in the organization. Did anybody think about that? Are we going to turn off fires, put out fires, sorry? Or are we going to think about it before starting the project to make sure that we are all aligned and we're all safe to do what we are planning to do? This is a very important question. And finally, I am a tech guy. I'm a very analytical guy. So I need a specific metric. What are we saying here? Are we pushing for more revenue because we're building this cool AI SDR? Are we reducing expenses because we're doing an automated FP&A bot? Or is there something completely different? What are we optimizing and how do we measure it? What is the number today? What is going to be the number tomorrow? Once we have that, there is a clear lighthouse where we are sailing. And that sail can go left and right, but we have a clear lighthouse where we're all headed to. So before starting this project, who owns it? Is compliance already involved? And what a success is going to look like. So I'll just wrap up with this. Technology is fine. AI is great. All models are more or less equal, some better than others. I wouldn't say who, but what's missing is the accountability, the responsibility, and to make sure to turn all of this into business value. And with that, I welcome you to reach out for any questions and for any concerns. I'm happy to share from my knowledge and experience over the last 20 years. Thank you so much.
Daniel, thank you for that wonderful presentation. For everyone that's listening in live, in front of you, you have a Q&A box. Any questions that you have for Daniel, type them into that box, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can on the next Q&A panel, which is coming up in just a few minutes. Daniel will be part of that next panel.